If you enjoyed the channel and our video content and would like to support us, you can do this in a couple of ways. You can sign up to our Patreon site, which is a monthly subscription to one of our 4 tiers, each giving you something different from early access interviews up to exclusive unseen footage. There's also the option of a one-off donation via PayPal, which allows you the option to donate an amount of your choice. Both options really help to keep this channel going and to continue putting out regular content for you good folk. So please take a look at aircrewinterview.tv/donate, and I thank you in advance. Thank you and enjoy. Did you work with the Americans a lot? Obviously, they operated Phantoms. Did you ever swap notes with them?
We did play with the Americans. I don't recall playing with the Americans very much. I mean, we had an American exchange officer on the squadron. Most squadrons seem to have an American exchange officer on. But I don't actually recall from Lucas sort of playing too often with the Americans.
Right.
It used to be the Norwegians, for example. I mean, I remember, we used to regularly go across to Norway and take them on sort of in DACT. I had a very interesting tour at Lucas for other reasons as well. It was Treble 1 Squadron, when I joined it, was a really good squadron. It was a good squadron throughout. Very famous squadron, a very proud squadron, and I was very proud to be on it. And throughout, in fact, the aircrew were always first class. But we had our interesting moments. We had our sad moments too. I mean, I remember 1978 when I was on the squadron. We lost 3 aircraft in about 4-month period, wow, including 2 crews who were killed. That hits the squadron hard when that happens. And that was that period. But later on, I was leading a detachment of Mark I Phantoms. In fact, by this time we re-equipped. At Auchenbury, where we used to go take a detachment down there and do DS. That's where we did work with the Americans. We'd do aggressor training. They had F5s, and we'd do a week of DACT with them. And we lost a Phantom down there, in fact, at Auchenbury. The radome came open in the finals turn, and when the radome comes open, then you have what is basically a flat plate. And the aircraft wasn't going flying anywhere at that point, and the crew banged out. That was very much a technical problem.
So can you share maybe a few memorable stories from your time on the Phantom? It can either be in the air or on the ground or with the crews, anything like that, Rick?
I will never forget the detachment we had to Malta in 1978. It was actually the last fighter detachment to Malta before Malta sort of ceased to have any RAF there, because they... And we used to go and do our gun firing there. We had an incredibly successful sort of armour practice camp called, where we fired the guns. Really successful. And we also sort of had a memorable day when we flew 111 sorties in a day.
What?
111 sorties.
How did that?
That was quite an achievement. That was particularly memorable. But that was memorable. That detachment was memorable for so many reasons. But because detachments are always great bonding sessions for the squadron, and the squadron was really humming then. It was great. And in fact, I went. Funny enough, I went. That was in May 1978. With the boss and I sort of plus a couple of backseaters, good friends, went back to Malta for the closing ceremony of Malta in September 1978. So Malta is a time that I remember very well. The other time I remember, in particular, talking about the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean was always a popular place to go. Used to love going to Cyprus, but for some reason, the fighter squadrons weren't going to Cyprus for a while. However, that was about to change. And I went on the initial proving mission for the Phantom, going back to Cyprus for armour practice camps. And we had 2 tankers. I remember 2 Victor tankers, and myself and the other pilot of the other Phantom was the American exchange. And we were down refueling. In fact, we were known as, the tankers were known as Mother and we were known as Chicks. Yeah. On this time, we had 2 tankers. We'd normally probably only have one, and sort of would be handed over. This one, and the number 2 tank. I was on the lead tanker, taking fuel off him, and the number 2 tanker was in trail, and my buddy, my number 2, was taking fuel off when the trail Victor hit slipstream, and that's not funny. And what happened then was the basically sort of because of the slipstream, the effect on the hose and things, it took the probe off the Phantom.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, sort of we were in a situation there, sort of where you had to think, well, and it's really sort of we would think, but the lead aircraft was the Victor. So in that situation, in fact, as it happened in the end, one Victor went into Malta with my number 2, and I went on to Cyprus with the other one. And in fact, the number 2, sort of with more fuel, he flew on that afternoon from Malta, but with the probe out. He didn't have to refuel because he had enough fuel. So that, I remember that was an interesting. That was an interesting trip to Cyprus. That was, but we had a good time in Cyprus, and we went back to Cyprus, and I can't, the detachments, the squadron detachments, particularly Cyprus, we go down there for 6 weeks. In fact, I remember one year we went down there for 6 weeks. We were just having our farewell party, and we just heard that we weren't going back the next day as we expected to. But we've been delayed a week because, which was pretty typical in fact, the Italian air traffic controllers were going on strike. Well, if it's not the Italians, it's the French. So it's one of those things you have to put up with every now and again. But those detachments, the detachments on the squadrons were something quite memorable. There's so much more to remember about my time on the Phantom, but I think the things that the aircraft was great, although I have to be honest, I prefer the Lightning.
Of course.
You will hear some people say. Very capable. Being at Lucas was very special to me because I was in exactly where I wanted to be. It was a great place to operate from, and with everything, it was so much variety there. It was just a very memorable time. I will tell you one other thing about we did when I was at Lucas with the Phantom. We used to practice our intercepts from ground level right the way up to the highest level. The RAF used to hire Concorde to come down the North Sea at 60,000 feet. At Mach 2, and we'd line up the fighter world, which in those days was mainly Phantoms, to intercept Concorde. Well, I can tell you that sort of I carried out a very successful intercept on Concorde, but I never saw it because I launched my head-on missile, and that was one of the big advantages of having an aircraft where you had missiles that were rear hemisphere missiles and missiles which were head-on. I launched it at a great range. Never saw Concorde, but my system, because we could simulate the system very well, that did the job.
So you can just call up, I don't know, British.
Well, you called up, in the fighter world, sort of. Fox 1 is a radar missile basically. That's Fox 1 would be my call sort of for the head-on missile. Fox 2 would be the rear hemisphere missile. And Fox 3 was the gun. One night I was airborne with my wingman. We got airborne about 11 o'clock, went up on the tanker in fact, and took fuel on. I had three fuel tanks on, so I fueled to full. So I had plenty of fuel, but unfortunately my number 2 went US and had to go back to Lucas. Now, so there I was at 11:30 at night. Not much trade around at that time of night. So we thought, what are we going to do? So we went on a practice diversion to Lossiemouth. That was the first thing, get the fuel down a bit. But we were so heavy you couldn't do a roller. And this is another difference. I'll talk about that in a minute. Landing the Phantom. So anyway, I was too heavy to put the wheels on the ground, so it was going to be a low overshoot. So I came down the approach in this very heavy, full fuel aircraft, and as I overshot, came down, everything okay, opened the engines up to overshoot, and there was an almighty bang, and the whole sky lit up. I could see instantaneously, because I could see that my right-hand engine had seized. Air traffic control said to me, "You're on fire, you're on fire." I put a mayday call out, because in that situation I had an engine that seized. Fortunately, the failure was contained, because we had containment shields, and but if you've got blades that have been shedded all over the place, so it goes into the other engine and take the other one, you've got a real problem. I had a real problem anyway, because the Phantom at that weight wasn't going anywhere really until the reheat lit on the good engine. So I was in a mayday situation at that point. As soon as the reheat lit, I breathed a sigh of relief, and downgraded the mayday to pan. I think it was about that point that my back seater sort of said, "What the is going on?" Anyway, I dumped fuel at that point, and landed at Lossiemouth, and we went to the bar, the bothy bar they had there, sort of, and by this time it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and anyway, the air trafficker came up to me and said they'd picked up a bag and a half of blades
Wow.
on the runway. I can show you a photograph of what the engine looked like.
Yeah.
It was a complete wreck.
A write-off then.
Oh, worse than a write-off. You'll see the photograph in a minute.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting experience, landing the Phantom. I've got to say that as far as I'm concerned, I found the angle of attack indicator an exceptionally useful piece of kit. And in the Phantom, it was great in the Tornado as well. But in the Phantom, it was up by the gun sight, so you could look at it as you're coming down, and it was very good for all forms of flying, because that sort of told you when you're in the best position. But landing it, the aircraft was designed to land on a carrier.
Yeah.
You didn't land it; you just flew it in. So I've always said that the Phantom was the easiest aircraft to land that I flew, because you didn't have kick-off drift and sort of flare and things like that. You just flew it in. It was a tough machine.
What was the best thing about flying the Phantom?
I think the best thing was flying an aircraft as capable as that at the time. Mm-hmm. That's definitely, you knew. It's like everything, you train for it. You use the kit, you train for it, and with the Phantom, you had a very capable aircraft.
So what you're currently up to? Any books in the works?
Yep. I've got, in fact, I've got a couple of books coming up. Right now I'm finishing a book about my father, my third book, called Teddy Peacock-Edwards, Battle of Britain Pilots and World War II Ace. So I'm finishing that. That will be published in the first quarter next year, I think now. And then I'm going to write a book about, because my publishers asked me to write a book about, my time flying the Lightning.
Brilliant.
What's the space?
It's going to be that big, isn't it?
But I do want to say from the outside, every aircraft I've flown, I've absolutely loved. Absolutely loved. They've all got strong sort of strengths, and one or two little weaknesses, a few little weaknesses as well. But bloody good. And the Phantom was a great aircraft. I love flying the Phantom.
Well, Rick, where can we find your books, your current books, online, and where can we expect to see the future ones?
They'll be online. In fact, my next book is already being marketed by Amazon. I think they
pre-order.
Yeah, you can pre-order. Yeah. So that'll be there. Yeah. The Lightning book. Well, assuming sort of I get the book about my father sort of published on time, then I think the Lightning book will be it's my next project, and it's clearly a winter project. It will be easier for me to write than writing about my father, because that required a lot of research.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It gave me a lot of satisfaction too, because I learned so much about my father in the process, whereas the Lightning book will just come straight out of my head, because it's all there. And I have found writing any book I've written, as you're writing, the memories really start coming back.
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot more. As soon as we finish this chat now, I'll think of all sorts of things I want to say about the Phantom.
It happens all the time, Rick. I'm like, I didn't mention that yet. Well, Rick, thank you very much for coming back on the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Mike, it's always good to see you too. We've been dealing with each other for quite a long time now.
We have.
And I admire what you're doing, and I take my hat off to what you've achieved as well. And I always enjoy sort of working with you.
Yeah,
so it's great to see you.
Thanks very much.